Hello and welcome to a look at Super Monaco Grand Prix for the Amiga, a Sega arcade original that was converted by Probe and released by US Gold. The objective in this game is to race on the fabled track of Monaco, hence the title. But before you get anywhere near that, you need to race on other tracks and qualify for the next track. You will start in France, and then if you qualify as a 7th or higher, you will move on to Brazil, where the qualifying rank is 5th, or placement I should say, is 5th or higher. Then finally you reach Spain, and then on that track you have to qualify as a 3rd or higher, and then Monaco is waiting you. Before each race, you have to do a qualifying lap to determine the position you start with in the actual race. And as you can possibly imagine, the better your qualifying time is, the better your starting position is, and that is something that is very, very important in this game. The races themselves contain 3 laps that has to be completed, and while there is a timer, the timer is not relevant for qualification. It is entirely position based. And if we quickly cover the interface, you can see top left the location we are racing at, on, in, whatever. Underneath that you have the position limit, which is the position you have to qualify. And that updates every single time you pass a checkpoint or the start finishing line. To the right of that you have your current position. To the right of that again you have your current overall time. And further to the right you have your lap, the number of the lap you are currently on. Top middle is a view mirror, which is not particularly useful, and to the right of that is a time overview of the different lap times. Down the bottom left you have your transmission, which is super relevant for this game. And further down to the right you have your current speed in kilometers per hour. That may be awkward for certain people, but I can do both miles per hour and kilometers per hour, so I'm perfectly okay with that. I mentioned before that you have to qualify in a certain position in order to progress to the next track, and that is the defining factor in this game. You can play with a mouse or joystick or keyboard. Even though the keyboard is actually not listed on the game menu, it is definitely listed in the manual. And you have access to driving with manual gear or automatic gears. You are recommended to initially play with automatic gears because it is somewhat easier. You don't have to think about shifting gears yourself. But as you can likely imagine, is the case in this game, because it's the case in 99% of all other racing games, manual gears are infinitely more efficient and likely also faster to use than an automatic gearbox. So the sooner you feel you are confident to upgrade to using manual gears, the better off you are. You have access to 2 sets of manual gearboxes, a 4-speed and a 7-speed, and the 7-speed allows you an extremely high top speed, which also of course means that because of that high top speed you are much more likely to crash out if you are not aware of the tracks and underestimate a turn or curve and smack into it at too high a speed, because if you wreck your car, it's game over. Let's talk on technical stuff. For reference, I cannot remember having seen the arcade original. I likely have. But while I like racing games, I'm not the greatest fan of track racing games, especially not when they swallow my coins to play them. So I would very unlikely have played it. But from a graphical point of view, this game doesn't look particularly epically stellar, I suppose, but it definitely doesn't look bad either. That would be rather unjustified to make that claim. And the movement of the graphics is very, very fast, all things considered. It sort of feels a bit like Super Hang-On, but with Formula 1 cars instead, except for the fact that Super Hang-On has a bit more flair by the very nature of being a motorcycle racing game. But graphics-wise, it's not exactly, as I said, spectacular, but you can easily identify everything, and the movement of the graphic is relatively fast. There's occasional slowdowns when you have a lot of cars on the track around you, but it is not necessarily something that is hugely affecting your gameplay experience. So graphics-wise, I'm perfectly happy with this game. On the sound side of things, the sound effects can be a bit annoying, especially when you start skidding constantly because of driving in wet weather conditions, which can occur. And the screeching of the tires can be a bit annoying. The other sounds are not necessarily standing out in any way, shape, or form, but at least the engine sound is believable without being overly annoying and dominant. So, sound effects wise, I'm perfectly okay. The music and jingles and all that kind of stuff is likely inspired or taken from the arcade original, and they are very appropriate for the game because, of course, it is an arcadey racer, and it needs to be a bit hip and a bit spiffy, and the music is definitely both a bit hip and a bit spiffy, and a bit happy and all that good stuff. Control-wise, while it is entirely possible and perfectly acceptable to play this game with joystick, I would highly recommend using a mouse. In the main menu, you can define the sensitivity of the mouse, and by that way you can define just how much you need to move the mouse left and right in order to control the car's movement left and right. But the fact that the mouse has two buttons makes something like shifting gears significantly easier, and you are basically required to play this game with manual gears if you want to have a fair chance of beating it. By using mouse controls, you use left mouse button to accelerate, and while accelerating, if you tap the right mouse button to gear up, and if you let go of the left mouse button and tap the right mouse button again, you will shift down a gear. The game is not particularly forgiving for mistakes. Bumping into side barriers without wrecking your car, of course, which is instant game over. You will lose a bit of time here and there, and bumping into cars, you'll lose a bit of time here and there, and you suddenly realize that it becomes virtually impossible to qualify, especially at the later tracks. So basically, you need to have a certain proficiency level with the different tracks and playing with manual gears to stand a chance of beating the game. The manual cleverly states that you can block off other cars, but that is why I was saying that the rear view mirror is a bit of a waste of space, because cars coming from behind can overtake through you, which is always lovely. As an arcade racing game, this one is not bad at all. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time. Bye bye for now.